Good morning and welcome back to WorksheetCloud. My name is Mrs. Vauget and I'll be keeping you up to date with your English work. So let's jump right into our lesson today. We're going to be looking at emotive, literal and figurative language. And if you were here yesterday, we spoke about visual literacy and we looked at some photographs and we looked at adverts. And when we looked at these pictures, we had to ascertain what was in the picture. So what can you see? What does the picture make you feel? And what do you think that the person who took the photograph or the creator of the advert or the piece of writing, what are they trying to get out of you? Or what kind of emotional response do they want you to have? So if we look at this slide, emotive language is a deliberate choice of words to get an emotion out of you or to elicit an emotion. And it's used to persuade you to side with the writer or the author. And so if we look at this little picture of this dog, I want you just to pause the video in a minute and tell me what you see in terms of what you're looking at. Where is the dog? What do you think is happening in that scene? What about the owners? How does that picture make you feel? And as soon as you've done that, we're going to come back together and we'll go through it so that we get a better idea of what we're looking at. Right. If you take a look at that picture, I hope you thought of words like perhaps the dog is trapped or behind a fence, perhaps he's been left alone, he's got his little paw on the fence, or perhaps he's feeling sad. There's a whole lot of things that we can gain from that picture. And I hope you came up with some of these words like maybe he's trapped. An even better word for that is confined, defenseless, so he can't get out. If you use the words he looks sad, I hope you then thought of maybe a little bit more of an emotive word like heartbroken, lonely, isolated, homeless. Is he innocent and guiltless? Have the owners neglected or ignored or forgotten about him? Yes, he's cute, he's precious, he's adorable. A better word for left is maybe abandoned. Another word for bad, and even a better word for bad, because bad just is one of those dead words, and we need to sort of think of words that create a little bit more emotion. Cruel. And so if we were to take a sentence and write a sentence about this picture, this dog has been left by its owners. It creates a little bit of emotion, shame, he's been left, but you could create that into an even better sentence, like the innocent dog has been left by its cruel owners. Or the defenseless dog has been left by, or has been abandoned, not left, abandoned by the cruel owners. So something to think about. And then we move on to literal language versus figurative language. And literal is the dictionary meaning. So taken straight out of the dictionary, it means exactly what it says. So it doesn't make use of any comparisons to try and that you have to sort of think about and work out. As it's in the dictionary, that's what it means. And then we've got figurative language, which gives a connotation to a word. So it evokes an emotion. So it uses figurative language like our similes, our metaphors, not just those, your powerful vocabulary like synonyms for the word bad, cruel. It uses that to make your writing more meaningful. So if we go into a little bit more detail about denotation and connotation, it's quite easy to remember if you take the D for denotation. A word's denotation is the dictionary definition. So the D's will help you remember. Denotation, dictionary meaning. So it's literally what it says in the dictionary is what it is. But a word can also evoke certain thoughts and feelings. And those thoughts are associated with a certain word, and we call that a connotation of the word. So that's more figurative. So words can have the same denotation or the same dictionary meaning, but have a different connotation. And so we're going to look at that. So the connotation of a word can be positive, it can be negative, or just can be neutral. So I want you to take a look at this little bubble on the left-hand side. We've got three words there: smell, reek, aroma. If we look them up in the dictionary, they'd have something to do with things that you smell. And they can either be a good smell or a bad smell. And that's exactly what we're talking about. So all three words are to do with smell, but one has a positive connotation, one has a negative, and one is just neutral. Can you work it out? Great. I hope you got that. Smell is just a neutral connotation. Doesn't mean good or bad. But a reek, if something reeks, for example, somebody took off their shoes in company and that smell was really bad. You could say that their feet or the socks reeked from being in the closed shoes. If we're talking about aroma, it's a little bit of a nicer connotation, sort of more positive, like on MasterChef when they go like this to get the aroma of the spices that they're cooking with. Right, let's take a look at these two. I want you to see if you can work out which is the positive or negative connotation. So both mean that they are busy children. So would we use wild as a positive and negative, or energetic as a positive or a negative? I hope you got that. So energetic is positive because we're talking about children normally have a lot of energy. So that's a positive connotation. And then we've got wild would be your negative, almost comparing children to animals, being wild and untamed. And so that sort of gives a more negative picture of children, wild children, energetic children, more positive, and then that one is negative. Let's look at squandered or spent money. Now, squandered is the negative connotation because it's almost like you were wasteful in spending your money. And spent, it doesn't really tell us whether you were wasteful or whether you were wise. And so that one can have a neutral connotation. You just spent your money, but we don't know how. I hope you're getting it. We're going to look now at some for us to do together. So I'll do the first one together. And what I want you to do is hopefully you've got a notepad and pen handy, as you should for each lesson. And I want you to put 3 columns on your piece of paper. So have denotation, the dictionary meaning, and then have a plus sign with a C, positive connotation, and have a negative sign with a C for negative connotation. And then what you're going to do is, if we look at number 1, we'll do it together. So you've got the words gaze, look steadily, and stare. So they all sort of mean the same thing. If you gaze or look or stare, you're doing the same thing. But we don't just want the dictionary definition, the denotation. We want to know which one is more positive in the connotation or negative. And so if you look at my example, there we go. Your dictionary definition just means to look steadily. That's what gaze or stare means. But gaze has a positive connotation to the word. So if you just gaze at something, but if you stare, and I'm sure your mom and dad have told you not to stare at people, so that's got the negative connotation, sort of staring at somebody. So what I'd like you to do now is to do number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you can just pause the video, fill them in on your piece of paper, and then we'll come back and see how you've done, and we'll go through it together. Great. So let's take a look. The first one, yes, the dictionary meaning, a smell sensed by the olfactory nerve is the nerves in your nose. So that's what is just the dictionary definition of a word like fragrance or odor or smell. But the positive is fragrance, as in perfume or a bouquet of flowers. And the negative would be an odor, almost like those stinky feet as they come out of those socks. Influence one way or another, the second one. So if you try and persuade somebody, you sort of give them a choice. So you can tell them what you want them to know about, and then they can decide. But when you talk about brainwash, there's a very negative connotation to that. Almost like you had no choice, and they sort of like, you just had to go along with what they said. So it's got a negative connotation to be brainwashed by something. You didn't even have a choice. But to be persuaded, somebody sort of spoke you into their viewpoint, and you went, oh, okay, I can understand. Not on time. So if you're late, delayed or tardy. So delayed is the positive. That indicates that you something happened and it was beyond your control. So a plane was delayed, and so that's why you were delayed. The plane was running late, the flights. If it's tardy, that sort of indicates a negative connotation to the word. In other words, you were lazy in some way, and it was your fault. So it wasn't, without you being responsible. Somewhat interested, lovely word. You can either be curious or nosy. Obviously, to be curious about the world and things to do with science and words and life is good. That's got that positive feeling to the word. But nosy is almost like and I'm scratching my nose, but that was just coincidental. If you're nosy, you're trying to find out something so that you can use it against somebody. So it's a little bit more of a negative connotation. And then the last one, without haste, in other words, if you're not in a hurry, you can either do something leisurely or lazily. And obviously that word lazy has the negative connotation. So yes, leisurely is the positive connotation and lazily is the negative. Right, we now move on to figurative language, and we're talking about the onomatopoeia, simile, metaphor, alliteration, idioms, all of those that you've probably learned through grade 5, 6, and into grade 7. But the ones that we're just going to focus on today are 7 of them. So we're going to focus on your comparisons, your metaphors and similes. We're going to focus on personification, hyperboles, and onomatopoeia. And then we're also going to focus on puns and alliteration. And 2 of them, the alliteration and onomatopoeia, are your sound devices, so that you do with sound. And we'll go through each one just to recap to see if you remember them. So let's start off with our comparisons. So you've got similes and metaphors. They're both comparisons, but similes, remember, use the words like or as. And as you can see in the picture, the shoes sparkled like diamonds. And then I was as hungry as a bear, using the words like or as. And then we've got metaphors. And metaphors are also a comparison, but you don't use the words like or as. Right, so let's take a look at the examples. My baby brother is a cute little teddy bear. So it's not comparing him using the words like or as. He's not like a cute little teddy bear. He is a cute little teddy bear. So it's a direct comparison. My sister's memory is a camera that remembers everything we see. Love that one. So her memory is not like a camera. It is a camera that literally takes snapshots of everything, and that's how they remember everything they see. So some lovely comparisons there. Lovely figurative language devices to use in your writing. Right, if we move on to personification, in the word is the word person, so that's the clue. It gives human qualities or person qualities to inanimate objects, animals, or ideas. And as you see in the example, the sun happily greeted everyone good morning. The sun can't really talk, so it can't really greet and say good morning. And then the cloud picture, the sky turned dreary as the glum clouds enveloped it. So clouds can't envelop or put their arms around something. And so, but lovely to use that in your writing to create a picture for the person reading it. And then hyperbole, one of my favorites. It's an outrageous exaggeration. And I love that cute little picture. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. And the horse is like, what? When my children used to come home some afternoons before lockdown, they would say, oh, I've got a ton of homework. They didn't really have 1,000 kilograms of homework to do. It just felt like it was so much that they used that exaggeration. And obviously it's outrageous. Your next one is onomatopoeia and alliteration. These 2 are sound devices. So onomatopoeia is where the words sound like their meaning. Splash, crack, hiss, crack, splat, gulp. And then alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds, like Tex was tickled as he tasted the tarantula's toes, that T, T, T consonant sound. You obviously don't have to have it throughout a sentence. It could even be in the beginning. Tex was tickled as he tasted the tomato sauce. And then we've got our last one that we're looking at today and revising is a pun. It's a joke that makes a play on words, and I love these pictures. I've been thinking of you. We are meant to be, from we are meant to be, to mint plants. And I love this one with the hat talking to the tie. You hang around, I'll go on ahead. And obviously the hat goes on ahead, but the tie goes around the neck. So quite cute, a little bit corny, but very cute nonetheless. So let's see if you can figure out the figure of speech. So what I want you to do is also to pause the video at this stage, write 1 to 13 on your piece of paper, and next to each one, write what you think it is out of those 7. So whether it's a sound device, alliteration, and onomatopoeia, is it a comparison, a simile, or a metaphor? Is it an exaggeration, like ridiculous one? Is it your personification, using a person quality, or is it a pun? And As soon as you've done it, push record, not record, push play, and we'll come back and go through it together. Here we go. So number 1, the radio suddenly stopped singing and stared at me. As you can see, I've underlined the important words: radio, singing, and stared. The radio can't sing nor stare, and so it's giving an inanimate object, a radio, person or human quality, so personification. There's the word person there. Really good to remember that. Number 2, you could have knocked me over with a feather. So especially if you run something like the Comrades Marathon and you're so exhausted afterwards, you're completely exaggerating that somebody could actually literally just touch you with a feather and you'd fall over. A feather can't really do much, but it's exaggerating how tired you are and how easily it would be to knock you over. Then if we're looking at number 3, they fought like cats and dogs. So there's your simile using the word like, comparing they, perhaps it's a brother and a sister, hopefully not you, fighting like cats and dogs, because cats and dogs normally are opposites and don't really get on. Number 4, he has a heart of stone. So that's a metaphor, directly comparing his heart to a stone, not saying it's like a stone. His heart is a stone. And in that way describing how uncaring and unfeeling this person would be, because a stone it's really got no feeling or consideration for anybody else. So if you're comparing that to that person's heart, really unfeeling, uncaring person. Number 5, I was struggling to figure out how lightning works, but then it struck me. Love that pun. So obviously lightning strikes, but obviously if you're trying to figure out how lightning works and suddenly it strikes you, almost like that strike of a lightning bolt. Number 6, Betty bought butter, but the butter was bitter. There's your alliteration. As I said earlier, you don't have to have it throughout the sentence. You could say, Peter pulls the chair across the dining room. Peter pulls. There's your alliteration there. Number 7, I've told you 1,000,000 times to clean your room. Complete exaggeration. Mom hasn't literally told you a 1,000,000 times to clean your room. Probably quite a few times, but definitely not 1,000,000. So it's a complete over-exaggeration. Number 8, a boiled egg. Every morning is hard to beat. Eggs you can beat if you do them from raw. So a boiled egg, every morning is hard to beat. There's the play on words, a little bit of a joke. There's your pun. Number 9, you're a couch potato. So you are a couch potato, comparing you directly to something. It's a metaphor, so implying that you're lazy. Number 10, watching that movie was like watching grass grow. So in other words, the movie was so boring. It's almost, to watch grass grow would be the slowest thing that you could ever imagine watching. You wouldn't be able to really see it. So that movie was really slow, didn't capture your attention, not great to watch. And using the word like is the comparison. So the movie is compared to grass growing. Number 11, you snore louder than a railway train. Complete exaggeration. If you ever lived close to or past a railway line and have the train go past, it's very loud. But your snoring is not as loud as that train going past. Number 12, the burning wood hissed and crackled. There's your sound device, onomatopoeia. Hiss, crack. You can actually hear that in the words. Number 13, our last one, you scared me to death. So if somebody gave you a fright, you didn't really die, but you exaggerated that you got such a fright it felt like you were going to die. So some lovely ideas to use in your writing. And I love this. I found this, as you can see, taken from that website, How to Paint a Picture with Words. Figurative language can make you look at the world differently. It can heighten your senses, add expression and emphasis, and help you feel like you're having the same experience as the author, the person writing. With each brush stroke across the canvas, a painter adds depth to their masterpiece. Figurative language adds the same kind of depth to our writing. So instead of hearing the wind blowing against your window tonight, perhaps you'll hear the whisper of the wind as it calls out for you like a friend in the night. There's your personification, the wind being compared, giving a person quality like whispering, and like a friend in the night, the wind being compared to a friend. There's your simile. So that blank page you're looking at, possibly in the next couple of lessons when we do some kind of creative writing, is actually a blank canvas. So it's up to you to add that texture and that depth as you would as an artist. And so have fun layering your literary devices, but remember not to go overboard with them. So yes, do you want to make a big impact with your writing? Then use those figurative language devices. But as was stated in the slide before this, don't overdo it. Don't have onomatopoeia and then personification and then a simile. Sometimes when there's too many, you lose the impact of what you're trying to get across. So be clever in the way you use those different devices. So just to recap, we've come to the end of our lesson. So go through emotive language, literal and figurative language. Look at those words, make them more powerful. Instead of using bad, use terrible, horrific, treacherous. And then your literal and figurative language, look at your dictionary meaning, the denotation, and then look at your connotation as well as your devices to implement in your writing. And so we've come to the end. If you close this video at this point, you'll come to a screen that looks like this, and there will be some activities for you to do. You can choose, there might be one or two, or you can do all of them, but definitely I would suggest that you do it just to recap and make sure that you've understood this lesson. And then if you have any questions, don't forget to email me at grade7@worksheetcloud.com, and I will answer them as soon as I can. And so thank you again, grade 7s, for watching. This lesson was brought to you by Worksheet Cloud. I will be here at the same time, same place. See you tomorrow. Bye.